If you're staying still, you're dead. Obviously, their businesses are more volatile, so we like to be like, you can come to us and we can help you with any solution. We have built our own tech platform, and then we have like a sales team that sits on top of that. They'll help negotiate for you. So there's really that human touch.
How are you bringing together all those different data points about what are the best locations out there, what's most accessible by which modes of transport?
So all the data points that we have is really from...
Jules Robertson is the co-founder of Tally Workspace, helping growing companies find the perfect office for their teams through personalized consultancy and smart technology.
I always think sometimes we know what's happening in the startup world before the rest of the world. So we are seeing like a huge return to everyone having full-time offices, and there's like been a real flight to quality. So people really have like quite high expectations out of their workspace.
Would you advise them to avoid any particular pitfalls?
I think always my number one advice is...
Welcome to Founder Stories. So as business owners, I think one of the things that we don't think about when we set up our businesses is how we're going to come together with our clients and our teams. We often start remote businesses, and actually finding somewhere to connect can be one of the most challenging and expensive things. So I'm delighted today to welcome Jules Robertson from Tally Workspace, who is solving that problem for all of us. So welcome, Jules.
Yeah.
Great to have you. I'm really excited because what you do, we've not had anybody talk about yet on the podcast. And so tell us about Tally Workspace and what it is that you guys do and the problems that you solve.
Yeah, sure. So we specialize in helping startups and scale-up businesses with their workspace problems. So we have two parts of the business. One is if you want a full-time office, so you want a permanent space to come together with your team. So whether that's in a serviced office, so a brand that you might know like WeWork or a Worklife or Huckletree, or we also do like fully branded HQs. So if you want like really like a space to call your own, and we brand it for you and we'll do everything for you. So yeah, full-time offices. The other part of the business is Tally Flex, which is an online, I'm going to say platform for lack of a better word, where you can book meeting rooms, hot desks, event space. So we aggregate like tens of thousands of workspaces, mainly around the UK, but we do have some outside of like in Europe and the rest of the world as well. So it's kind of solutions for everyone. And I think specifically because we work with startups and scale-ups, obviously their businesses are more volatile. So we like to be like, you can come to us and we can help you with any solution, whether you want ad hoc, part-time, full-time, and we can like work with you as you grow. So anything workspace, essentially.
That is so cool. And I mean, the problems that you solve are literally popping off in my head at 1,000 miles an hour as you're talking. Maybe it's because I'm building a startup myself, so I know that I am absolutely in your ICP. But what are you seeing as the kind of the real main pain points that you're solving across the community?
Yeah, I think with workspace, it is a bit of like a hidden industry. People don't know what price they should be paying, what location they be doing, what they should be looking out for. They specifically don't. Everyone wants flexible workspace, so I guess they don't know how flexible they can be. I think it's just like not knowing what's on the market. So kind of you do need like an expert to show you the way, essentially, especially in London. I mean, there is like thousands of different solutions. So I think we're really trying to bring transparency to it. And specifically with Tally, we have built our own tech platform, and then we have like a sales team that sits on top of that. So every single person who comes to Tally Workspace will get like a dedicated advisor that you work with. So we'll have our own technology and data and all the spaces available, but you will work with an individual who will really like come with you on all your office viewings. They'll help negotiate for you. So there's really that human touch, because people, it's kind of like houses, like the way that you actually choose workspace. Obviously there's like, I want the location and the price, but a lot of it is like, does this feel right for my team?
Yeah, and I love that. It was actually, you just answered my next question, which was going to be, is it a tech platform or is it consultancy? Do you find which camp are you in?
Yeah, well, the Tally Flex platform, which is the more ad hoc meeting rooms, hot desk, that is a tech platform. We have an amazing customer service team who will support that. So any second of the day that you need help, obviously you can write on the chat bot, we can call, email. But the full-time office side of things is quite like service-led, I would say. We have all our own data, all our own platforms, so we can produce like amazing presentations for you, spreadsheets, all this kind of thing. We can track all your viewings. We can automate alerts for you. So it's kind of, if you think like a Rightmove or a Zoopla or something, that's obviously the platform, but then it's like if you had that, but then when you wanted to find a house, you had like an individual broker working with you. So yeah, it is a combination of
fantastic. And you mentioned data points there. I assume that that's really important for you to be ahead of the game and you need to be able to do things that you can do quicker than if I was to go out and try and tackle this problem all by myself. You need to be able to get to the outcomes, which, the right outcome quicker. And so how are you, do you use AI, or how are you kind of bringing together all those different data points about, what are the best locations out there, what's most accessible by which modes of transport, etc.?
Yeah, so all of the data points that we have is really from the workspaces. So actually the workspace that we're filming this in today is one that we work with, one of the brands. So we get lots of the data points from them, and they give us their availability. We use a lot of AI to kind of pull that data, pull the images, pull the videos, floor plans, everything. We bring that onto our platform. We'll update that on a regular basis, and then we will obviously have the historical data. So that's kind of on the supply side. On the demand side, obviously we have people searching on our platform, and when our sales team are doing searches on behalf of their clients, they're also searching on our platform. So we'll have demand data on that side of things to see what people are searching for or looking for. But I guess, the main data point for us is hundreds of thousands of data points from the supply side of what's available, how the prices are changing. Because offices is a funny one. It's I always think sometimes we know what's happening in the startup world before the rest of the world, because if a company is not doing well, we'll be speaking to their founder who's saying don't tell the rest of the team, but we're downsizing, or we're about to do a raise, we need to be looking for office space. So sometimes we are a pre-metric to what's happening sometimes in terms of what people are looking for.
So you're kind of getting ahead of the game before anyone actually knows
slightly.
You're preparing. That's so interesting. You must have some really interesting conversations with startups.
A lot of people who were can you give me a Google invite, but can you make it secret? And I didn't know how to do that before, but when you have a hidden meeting, so they don't want anyone else to know that they're speaking to someone.
Oh, what a nice skill to have learned then along the way. And Jules, what kind of made you go into this business? There must be, was this a me problem for you?
Yeah, kind of. In all honesty, it was quite random. So I started the business with my co-founder, Laura. We started 4.5 years ago. And at the time, we were both working at other, I'm going to say scale-up businesses. So I was working in a fintech business. She was working in a health tech business. And then it was COVID. And essentially, we were just thinking of business ideas. And at the time, both our companies were spending, I'm going to say hundreds of thousands, if not millions of pounds per year on an office, which obviously wasn't getting used because it was middle of COVID. And both the companies were having to make people redundant. They were having it was a hard time for all businesses. So I think, just thought there must be an opportunity here, because the type of workspaces that people are going to go back to is going to be different. The way they use the workspace will be different. What they're willing to pay for it, the locations, that was clear to us that everything was going to have a shake up. So originally we were let's just try and get involved in what's going to be happening. So the first thing we did is we interviewed thousands of different startups to speak to them about what they think they're going to do when they go back. So that's why we started with the Tally Flex platform, because everyone was I think we'll just be meeting up on an ad hoc basis. Some people were more local to home. Then they kind of were then we're going to want to start meeting in meeting rooms near big King's Cross or Victoria, or big kind of commuter train stations. And then slowly it's evolved into and now we want a full-time office. Now we want a branded HQ. So we've kind of followed our customers along the way, I would say.
Which is your first amazing nugget of brilliance, because that is what you absolutely should do, right? And you're not the first founder to say what you did initially when you first started the business was to talk to the very people that you thought would be interested in your product, and actually the very fact they would have a conversation with you starts to give you that little bit of a proof of life, doesn't it, to say actually this is something that is definitely sparking, even if it's controversy or interest of any type, at least it's starting to get conversations going. So that must have been a really good early sign for you, that thousands of people were willing to give you their opinion or their 2 pence worth.
Yeah, I think we were lucky because it was COVID and no one had anything to do.
So
and they were yeah,
you seem nice, I'll talk to you.
This. Yeah, and I think it became I think it was done a bit everyone OD'd a bit on it, didn't they? Return to work, hybrid work, how are we going to work? It became boring.
Yeah, it did, yeah.
But we were very first out the gate with chatting to people about that. So I think at that point it was really interesting, because it is such a big problem for people. So yeah, but that actually was really good, because it became a very good client base for us, because we had talked to thousands of businesses. So we kept in contact with them, and they became our first kind of set of customers.
Yeah. And I think at the time we maybe thought that having a space was the problem, but actually it's the research behind that, and the getting the right space and not overpaying and everything, all those data points that you take that are probably why maybe a lot of the workspaces themselves as soon as people started to return to more of a kind of structured way of working, they've really struggled publicly, very much struggled, the actual workspaces. But what you've done, I suppose, has been, because you've followed the needs and you've followed the trends, I assume as you've been growing along the whole journey, as opposed to being a fad at one point, and that's now kind of people aren't really doing it that much anymore.
Yeah, I feel sorry for founders or people who are looking for offices, because it's hard, isn't it? Like, they didn't know there's a lot of like pushback from employees, and then it's a big like expense. Like, it's the second biggest expense after employees, normally workspace. So yeah, I think it's hard. Like, after COVID, people wanted people to come back to the office, but then it was like, if the office isn't as nice as your house, you're not going to come. Like, so then they have to spend loads of money on making a really nice office, but then they make a really nice office and people are still only coming a few days a week. So it's like such a huge like problem to have, isn't it, about what you're going to do?
As of now, so we're coming into Q4 2025. COVID is a bit of a old hat now. So what we're seeing now is probably what we're going to see for some time. That big transition has probably kind of died down a little bit. What does the landscape look now? I'm generally interested. What does the world of work look like right now?
I would say for the companies that we work with, which is like a distinct set of companies like the startup scale up, who they really do value like in-person work a lot, because they're like building stuff, this kind of like, you know, the mentality of like we're all in it together basically.
Yeah.
So we are seeing like a huge return to everyone having full-time offices essentially, because people, as soon as you want to come in more than 2 days a week, it makes sense to have a full-time office because you can negotiate better on a space, etc. So yeah, there's been a real flight to people having full-time offices, normally about 70% capacity for their full workforce. So if they're 100 person, they might have like a 70 person office. And there's like been a real flight to quality. So people really have like quite high expectations out of their workspace. And they want like a towel service, they want a gym in the building, they want it to be like nice. I think like it's better, my opinion, for this type of customer is like it's better to be remote or do like once a week or like part-time office, unless you are going to like step up to the kind of like nicer office. And it doesn't have to be like nice, like very fancy, but even if it's like a cheaper, lower value option, you want to be surrounded by other startups. You want to be in a nice area. You want to get your team to help you decorate the office. If it's like, you know, painting your branding on the walls, I don't think you can just kind of like get an out the box, like boring, like low value solution. I think also what's interesting at the moment is obviously like the rise of AI companies has meant that essentially companies have normally more revenue per head because of AI. So there's like a lot of like teams of like 3 to 10 people who are actually having a lot of revenue, and those people can afford like much higher, like nicer quality offices. So you're seeing like amazing spaces, yeah, like gyms, saunas, towel services, rooftop terraces, lunch delivered every day. It's kind of like weirdly gone back to those days of like, you know, the Google campus and like everyone being in there together. So yeah, I hear most companies I'm speaking to, like one I was helping with this morning, a startup, and they're like, we're going to get everyone to come back 5 days. So like I'd say people are getting their teams to come back more, and they're therefore saying we can bother investing in like much nicer spaces.
I would agree with that. I'm definitely seeing that. From leading sales teams, I think I would very much welcome it. It's very difficult, particularly as an inexperienced seller, to work from home and not have that guidance and be able to look at what others are doing and have that support network. When, you know, little things like losing a deal, you know, we used to look around and our mates would be there to support us, and now you look around and it's your dog.
Yeah, exactly.
Not that, I mean, a lot of people also assume asking for places they can bring their dogs to work as well.
That is literally number one. I cannot tell you. Dog friendly is ridiculous. It's like I did an office deal a couple of weeks ago, and it was a lease space. So it was like your own space that they take on for a couple of years, and they'll do branding for it, etc. And you weren't allowed dogs in the office or in the building because someone else's dog had bitten someone a year ago. So they changed the rules. So we had to get special. The founder went to the doctor to get his dog signed off as a therapy dog, so that he could bring in the dog. And like it will actually be like terms of the lease, like can you bring, how many dogs can you bring, etc. Because like that is number one on what people ask for is dog friendly.
This is like amazing. I think we're coming into completely different times now, and I like I say, I'm so here for it. I don't Remote working has been great for me because it's enabled me to get to know my children, and they're quite nice, actually. I didn't realise. But it's definitely something that as a leader, I'm absolutely welcoming. And the fact that we've been almost forced into this situation where we've got to provide a nice workspace that people want to come in, and it's a bit of an upgrade from home, I also think is really, really welcoming as well. I spent my early sales career in a cupboard with no window, and we shouldn't really be expecting people to produce for us and help us to grow our businesses if we're not willing to invest that little bit more in them. So we're seeing dogs.
Yeah.
Before we move off, Tally, a little bit, what are the kind of the big ticket items now that people are looking for? I'm genuinely interested.
I think natural light is always one.
Yeah.
That is always one. And people will be very specific. I want south facing, I want etc.
Really?
Yeah, so natural light is always number one. And then I would say dogs and gyms. Gyms is like a huge one as well.
So gone are the beer fridges.
Yeah, beer fridges are like, I would say, a negative.
What
these
about pool
days.
tables?
Now we've got kombucha taps. People like a kombucha tap.
I love a kombucha tap.
Yeah, I would love that too. But yeah, I think less is about like the leisure, I would say, side of things, and more is about like productivity. Obviously, I'm not saying like everyone should be in the office all the time or anything. Obviously, most companies are hybrid, and I really like welcome that. So the hybrid setup in terms of like the technology, like different kind of zoning is really important for offices these days, like having quiet zones, like interactive zones, that your hybrid areas, Zoom booths, focus booths. A lot of people really value large kitchen areas for people to have like lunch together, essentially. That's like a huge one that we get asked for, is kind of like to make sure there's like a social area within the office where everyone can hang out.
Surely that's better. Surely that's better than 5 days a week at home. It's obviously going to have its attraction, particularly if you've got to commute into London.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we need to sort that bit. If you can do that next, Jules, that would be brilliant, because ultimately, by the time people get to work, obviously, a lot of the time we're very stressed. But it's great that we're focusing on that productivity piece, and it's also quashing one of the arguments for full-time home working, which is, I'm more productive when I'm at home. It's like, right, okay, well, how do we make our office a place that you also feel super productive and more productive than home?
Definitely. And I think like to go along with productivity is like, I should probably say wellness, like wellness and productivity like go hand in hand really these days. So I think a lot of teams are looking for like that wellness side of things, where if that's like a gym or a wellness studio, or maybe it's like, just like a quiet zone that you can be in, or like nursing rooms, etc. So like I think the wellness side of things is like also huge to like marry the productivity.
And are the spaces keeping up? Are you finding a lot of spaces for all these crazy, weird and wonderful requirements?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, the amount of like supply that's coming online in London that's like high end is like a lot. And also, I'm not saying like everyone should go to high end offices. There is some amazing low value spaces that you can be like very creative with, which are amazing. I just think companies are coming to the office problem with more like intention these days. So it's like, I intentionally want to have this kind of like scrappy fun office, and I want this to be the policy. I intentionally want this to be this kind of space. I think companies have to really decide their policies and their spaces these days and stick with it, because when they hire someone, that's what they're expecting then for good. Whereas when we were coming out of COVID, it was like, it was okay for the business to have an office, then not have an office, then be hybrid, then not, then this. And I just don't think employees like you can't do that anymore as an employer, essentially. But yeah, the amount of amazing office spaces that are coming online, especially regionally, there's been like a real rise in like really nice community workspaces. Like Patch is an example of an operator, also like X and Y, Space Made. They're doing a lot of ones that are like outside of London. They're maybe like more in the suburbs or like commuter zones.
Love that. Absolutely love that. So founders that are listening, if you're wanting to build a team, and want to create an amazing productive space where they can be the most successful that they can be, but you don't want to be put into a pot. I know it's quite scary actually as a sales, like, they're making us come into the office, isn't it awful, isn't it old fashioned? If you want to go against that and actually fight back to that, they should reach out to you, right? Because you've got that advisory piece as well
Definitely.
to help them create that output that they're looking for.
Yeah, we work with a lot of teams who only meet up with their teams like once a month, once a quarter, and we do like specific spaces for them for like one day a week, one day a quarter. Yeah, okay. So we can be as flexible as you want to be. It's just having that range, because I think as companies evolve, they do have different needs as well.
Yeah, you need to get Jules in your little black book, all you founders and startups. Okay, so I think I understand, Tally. I think it's a great business idea, lots of longevity there. Let's take it back a little bit to you and your early career. And in fact, let's go back even further. Jules, talk to us about kind of how you started off from kind of school through to the world of work.
Yeah, sure. I just like grew up outside of London. And yeah, I was just kind of not like geeky at school, but I like really always loved education and like learning. So I went to the same school from like 5 to 18, did a gap year, went to uni. And then my first job was in banking. So I worked like at HSBC, a couple of different banks, specifically in shipping, like shipbroking, which is quite random. So yeah, I think that was based off like the fact that I did an economics degree. And then I went back to university and did an MBA. And then that is like what got my love of startups because yeah, I did that at Cambridge, and they have the business school there has very close ties with the entrepreneurial networks there. And there's like obviously amazing businesses or PhD students coming up with like incredible businesses there. So I worked a lot with the entrepreneurial societies and communities at Cambridge and like got involved in that. So after that, I was like, I really want to work in the world of startups. So
that's so cool.
Yeah. So then after that, then I went to work for a startup. I think now in the role it would be called Founders Associate, but at the time I think it was like special projects or something like that. But essentially helping the CEO do anything that they wanted to do.
Yeah, I love that. And it won't surprise you to know that I'd say maybe the majority, it's not that it's close, but probably the majority of founders that come on to the show, they kind of were not that academic, or they didn't do that well at school, but they loved school, or they were particularly good at reading or particularly good at one thing, but hated everything else and then just focused on the thing that they were good at. And then some of them did, we've had mixed bags with results and education. And again, not all went to university as well. But what I'm kind of a bit wary of, particularly as a mum as well, with kids that are getting older by the second, obviously, is I think social media is driving this as well, this view that if you want to be entrepreneurial, that means non-academic, that means non-learny, and it's therefore it's almost cool to kind of go against the grain at school and say, well, I don't need to do that because I'm going to have my own business anyway, so I don't need this. I'm not saying that if you are naturally non-academic, you won't, that's fine, but I think we're playing a bit of a dangerous game there with kids. And actually, it's great to hear that you've essentially gone through what is a more traditional route of education, but not only has that meant that you've still ended up running your own business, it's actually helped with that, and it's put you into those circles and those networks that have enabled you to start your own business through your MBA.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's really cool. Talk to us a little bit more about the MBA and how that enabled you to think entrepreneurially.
Yeah, I think with an MBA, like it teaches you the basics of everything. It doesn't make you an expert in anything, but say like you do like accounting, you'll learn how to read P&Ls and balance sheets, etc., which is like something really essential when you're looking at your own business. Like even yesterday I was snooping on our competitors like accounts on Companies House, etc., so like you're able just to read them, which I probably shouldn't be doing, and then it would like teach you the basics of like marketing. I think what's a really good thing is that you do a lot of actual placements in real life businesses. So I helped a company who's now been acquired, but I helped them raise like their Series A. So we did like all the pitch decks and interviews and put together like scripts for them for that. We did like another one which was like expanding into the German market for like a really now really good health tech company. So it's kind of like a lot of placements that you do. And then I also started my first business during it because I did like this entrepreneurial course like module, I would say. It was called Kids Go Play. It was essentially like ClassPass but for kids. So you'd have like that tokens and you can go off and use them to book kids classes. So we had to do like pitching for that and create websites, etc. And then you work out that like, because if someone's paying £10 for a kids class, you're making about 10p. So it's like not a very, you'd have to make it huge to be successful, but at least it like helps you create businesses in like a more protected environment, I would say. But yeah, I think for me, I wanted a bit of like I love learning. So I love the learning aspect of it and like researching and case studies, etc. And it also gives you a bit of like a pause out of work to be like, what do I want to do? It's so easy just to carry on with work, isn't it? Like promotions and moving, etc. So I think for me, more than anything, I'm not saying like I think MBAs have like fallen out of trend a bit, etc. So I'm not saying like that is the thing to do at all. And I know it's like only accessible to some people, but I think like something where you make sure you have like a pause and you think about what you actually want to do is like probably quite important every few years.
Yeah, definitely. And was there any point in that, whether it was during the MBA prior or former, was there any pivotal point that you thought actually the world of full-time work is probably not for me, and I definitely want to, the end goal is definitely to run a business.
Yeah, I think halfway through, lots of people have started applying for McKinsey, Deloitte. They were all applying for these consulting jobs. And I was thinking, what are you doing? Like, that sounds terrible. Like, they were like getting in their suits. And I was thinking, oh, that sounds like not great for you, but not great for me. And I think I couldn't bring myself to even apply for those things, which 90% of the people were applying for. So I think it wasn't so much like an actual decision that I made. It was more like a non-decision. Like, I decided not to do that stuff. Then I was like, oh, well, I'll try and investigate some other things. But yeah.
And then you went into banking after that?
No, I was doing banking before. And then after that, I really wanted to work in startups. So I actually looked at some good VCs, well, ones that I respected, and then looked at their portfolio and spent ages researching the products of their portfolio companies and thinking what is like good products. So I wanted to work for a company where I really believed in the product. And then I found this company called Soldo. They essentially do expenses, like it's like cards that you use as a business. And I was like, everyone should have that. Like, that's amazing. And then, yeah, I contacted the CEO and I just went into like work as an everything person.
Such a really good tip as well is if you want to get into, if you know that you want to work in business or you want to run your own business, actually understanding the nuts and bolts is quite an important skill. And if you, like you say, if you're not lucky enough to do the MBA, just working out, you know, if you look at, it's dead easy to get data on VC-backed businesses or any startups really. It's all very accessible data. So you just find something that you think, yeah, that sounds really cool, and get stuck in there. Just reach out and contact them. It's a great skill to have. And you said you were that everything person. What is your superpower? What is it that you, is it marketing, sales? Like, where do you see yourself? If you were in a big company, what department would you work in, do you think?
I think I would work in sales because I do love a deal. Like, I do wake up and think, this is amazing. And I think there's some days when I'm working on like lots of different, I'm going to say deals, but like helping companies find their offices. And I'm like, this is amazing. It's like, I'm on the phone, I'm doing this. I love that kind of like and also you're really helping companies when that closes. You're like really done a good thing for them. So I think I'd definitely be in sales, but I think my superpower is speed, definitely. I'm not very good at the detail, but like the amount of stuff that I can get done on a day, I would like to think that's like ranking in the top sense.
Which is very foundery.
Yeah, exactly.
A real founder's trait is that we can, and I often find with my business that I'm happy as long as I am in a different place when I finish the day to when I started the day. Like, I have to have moved something needs to have changed.
Yeah.
And I get very impatient otherwise. So I think that definitely is massive kind of founder trait. What does home life look like for you, Jules? So you seem like you're super busy and successful all the time. So what's going on behind the scenes?
Behind the scenes, I'm probably quite boring. I had a kid 7 months ago. So, yeah.
You've got a 7-month-old baby?
Yeah, 7-month-old baby, yeah. So, yeah, I had a baby 7 months ago and I took like 4 months out, and then I'm still returning. Like, I still work 4 days a week and do Fridays at home. So, yeah, it's just in Kensal Rise, and then a lot of exercise, a lot of walks, and a lot of podcasts. I'm really obsessed with podcasts. So, that's pretty much my life.
And what does the team look like at Tally?
The team at the moment, we have, so myself and Laura, I definitely more look after, I'd say, like go-to-market stuff. She's definitely like finance and operations. I'm like the annoying ideas person, and then
you're very needed.
And then she's like the sensible one, although she has some incredible ideas. And then, yeah, there's 2 people within the tech team. There's 1 kind of like head of operations, 2 customer success, and then there's 4 currently in our sales team, and we're hiring for a growth associate, so like a marketing role already.
Okay, we'll get in touch with Jules if you're a fantastic marketer. And how's that grown? Where did you start with, just yourself and Laura to start with? Has that been quite quick? Because that's quite a lot of people for a startup business.
Yeah, we basically started, so Laura and I, interestingly, we actually had a couple of full-time employees before we were full-time in the business. So I was working full-time at my old company, so was Laura. Laura went part-time at Tally. I went part-time at Tally. Then we had 2 full-time employees. And then after we raised some original angel money, we then went full-time with the business. But before that, like, we couldn't afford to. So I think that's like it all seems like people like quit their jobs and they suddenly have these startups, but it's like a really long transition for us. I'd say like 6 months to a year from working 2 businesses, 2 jobs at the same time, essentially, until we like fully were in with and could afford to be fully in with Tally Workspace. But yeah, the team has probably been around like 10 to 15 for like a couple of years now. So yeah, we're quite
And
picky.
you need that though. It sounds like because of the business is that hybrid, you need to have the customer support in there for people to feel as though they are speaking to humans. But you also need the tech side, because sometimes we don't want to speak to humans and we want things to just work, and we want to press a button and be able to get all of my results sent to me on an email or whatever. So you kind of, I suppose you need that larger team. I just want to go back, because what you just said was really interesting. I think that we hear some amazing stories on here of these brave decisions that people make. They wake up at 2:00 in the morning and they go, right, tomorrow I'm going to hand in my notice and I'm just going to build this business. And if they're sat with me and a year later, the chances are that it was a really good decision and the right decision, and they've been super successful. But I think, and I include myself in this, I know that there'll be people listening to that going, yeah, but how? Like, so that month that you did that, like, how did you buy stuff?
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's a really important element, and not everybody has that safety blanket. Not everyone has savings or family, or maybe a partner that's a high earner or whatever. So there is that, like, okay, yeah, that sounds cool, but that's not realistic in some people's minds. So yeah, you absolutely did it the other way, where you built your business almost in the background whilst you were still working, right?
I was quite lucky because we built it, as I say, during COVID. So obviously COVID, you wipe out socializing, you wipe out anything else.
You would have had to wipe that out anyway, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you have a lot of time.
Yeah.
And I think we actually found that I personally found that quite challenging.
Yeah.
After COVID ended, and I was like, oh, now I have to like socialize and go out, and I don't have all this time that I used to have. So I probably became very antisocial after that, because I used to be a partier, and then now I'd be like going to a party and then I'd thinking, I don't want to drink because I want to wake up and do work tomorrow. Because like the thing is, when you have a startup, like you want to work. It's not like you have to work. It's like you want to get up and do that stuff because like no one else is really pushing you apart from you. But yeah, we definitely balanced like part-time, full-time work. At the beginning of Tally, I did a lot of consulting projects for people who wanted to set up offices. So I do a lot of like research projects for them, like a lot of other like consulting things to bring money into Tally when the actual product wasn't generating any money. So I think it was, yeah, definitely a balance of two different jobs, consulting, lots of things at the same time. And obviously that does get easier like over time. But
it does, but it is that delayed gratification that we hear about, which is one of the skills that I think most founders need to learn, because you're not going to get the results overnight. I mean, you might start your business with, someone might just give you £1 million and like amazing, but I think that is less likely, particularly in this climate.
Yeah.
And often you might need to find another way to do it, whether that be kind of moonlighting as something else, whether it be stacking shelves in Tesco, whatever. But you do need to find an answer to that question of like, well, how am I going to do that? Because it's not as easy as just walking in this big kind of blaze of glory and handing in your notice and off you go into foundership. It's often a little bit of a longer journey than that.
I guess that it are some other options in terms of like, obviously you could do like entrepreneur first, or like I think Antler, or there's quite a lot of like
the
like,
accelerators.
The accelerators, also like non-ideal ones. So you can like quit your job and like go work for one of them, and I think they do obviously pay you like a small salary. So I guess that's a good solution. I do think in the current environment also people are raising money without having ideas, and it's based on distribution. So it's like if you have that distribution network already, like you have that following or etc., then you are able to raise money before you have the product. But thinking back to when we started Tally, like that wasn't the environment we were raising in. Like you really had to have a proven product before you raised any money. So then in that scenario, you do really have to be able to like have some money before like you're getting revenue from your business.
And talking about the following and that kind of networking piece, what is the kind of go-to-market strategy around Tally? And is it kind of inbound, or are you finding that you're bashing the phones most of the day?
It's a mix, in all honesty. We have inbound and outbound. As I say, we're currently hiring for like a growth marketing role. So that's to really like try and increase like our inbound. Through inbound, we really do invest in like SEO. We do paid as well. And then outbound, we have a sales team of 4 people. So they are literally like
going
on the phones.
Yeah.
It's interesting how AI has changed things. We used to get a lot from emails, and like we used to go to a lot of events, etc. But I think that now all of that is so automated and personalized, etc., that that's really fallen away. So now like really people value human interaction again. So like actually picking up the phone, actually meeting someone at an event, networking, because our business is very, if you want an office with us, it is very like you have interaction with us, and you'll spend days or like weeks like going around offices with one of our team. So you do have to really like like the person. So I think that people really value that like human interaction again. So yeah, calls is a really big one for us at the moment.
Definitely. And I was saying to another guest actually that I think AI is really exciting in sales and marketing. I often get asked whether I'm worried that they're going to invent an AI CRO that's going to oust me forever. And actually, no, I just think it's super exciting because if I'm honest, 70% of the work that I do could be done with AI. And then I get really, really good at the other 30% and love every second of it, because the things that you're really good at as a seller or as a everything, SDR, AE, CRO, it doesn't matter whether you're in sales and marketing, the things that you're really good at ordinarily are the things that you enjoy the most as well. So who cares if AI comes along and steals all the mundane crap that you've got to do every day anyway? So I actually think that's a really exciting time. How, I mean, you've mentioned you use AI in the business to kind of bring together the data points to give the recommendations. How do you think AI could affect the business from a, people self-serving versus coming to Tally for advice?
Yeah, I think because ours does have like the tech element and the data element, plus it also is like the service element. I think like the service element is obviously quite hard to replicate with AI, and the data stuff, like AI can help us do that. I guess for us, lots of people I'm sure are searching like office space in London on ChatGPT and trying to find search results at us. But for us, it's just like optimizing to have citations on that, etc. But I don't see like AI helps us a lot within our product. So I think it's just like working with it, not against it.
And often I think there's that question of, won't people just do it themselves? And it's like, yeah, but they don't want to.
Yeah.
So it's like, actually, you're still taking away a piece of a headache that they just don't want to have. And it's almost like that extra layer of security and certainty because you're experts in your field and you know what you're doing. So I think if it would be a bit of a no-brainer to come to you guys and get that extra piece of advice rather than make a bad decision, particularly if you're talking about more permanent workspace. It really resonates with me what you were saying about kind of giving people a bit of a treat to come back to work to, and actually making them. We had a office in Stratford prior to COVID, which actually was great for me because I just headed down the M11, but never mind. And then we decided when it was time for them to come back into the office, we were like, I was like, how do we entice them back into the thing we did forever? Like they used to just be normal. Well, now we have to entice them to get back to normal. And at that point, probably could have done with you, to be honest with you, Jules, because at that point, we set about this huge research project that was very time consuming and very mundane, going around to all these different office spaces in London. And I absolutely agree what you're saying about that kind of, you've got to make it a treat, because we ended up in a very expensive office with a Pilates, yoga, roof terrace, the whole lot. So I think and everyone was delighted to come
did they like it?
Yeah, everyone was delighted to come back, but we had to paint it a certain way and all the rest of it. So I think it's definitely a huge thing, and I think businesses should provide a space for everybody to come together, particularly with my sales hat on. I think sales teams absolutely work better when they're all under the same roof.
I think what's hard with the whole like going back to like the searching on AI, etc., is like the problem with office searches or workspace searches, etc., it's like within businesses, like whose job is it? Like I don't know within your business who actually found that space.
Yeah, me and the head of customer success.
Yeah, and it's like it's not your day job, and it's like you're not good at it. Like not that you're not good at it.
Sure, no, I was terrible. I was terrible. To be fair, he's probably listened to this thinking, actually, Donna, you didn't do anything, because I was really bad. I found it a really difficult task, to be honest.
Yeah, so I think it's like it's no one's chore. It's taken on, so it's kind of like a thankless task, I would say, but like it's obviously really important. So yeah, I think in the way that you would like search on AI for office spaces or search on Google for office spaces, you still want like outsourced person who kind of becomes part of your team temporarily to be like, don't worry, I get you. Like I will do this, and they are acting on your behalf, if you see what I mean. And we do literally become part of someone's team for a while, because it's really a lot of responsibility for the person who's making the decision.
Yeah, and I assume everyone in the business is as passionate about it as you are, because you can tell that you absolutely love it. I can just tell that you could talk about it all day, and it's really your thing.
I know way too much about workspaces in London. Like I'll be walking around and I'm like, telling my friends like really boring facts about these different buildings.
Yeah. So you're in a studio now that you have worked with, right? So it must have felt weird coming in today if it's one of your clients.
I always feel like I'm just allowed to snoop around every office because I've been to all of them. So I'm like, oh, I could just self-tour or self-guide myself around. It's probably not allowed.
Do you find yourself when you go to other people's offices really kind of snooping and having a look around and maybe critiquing everything as well?
I don't know, because I don't really have like favourites per se. I just like every office has its own use, doesn't it? I actually don't get out and about as much, like looking at the office spaces as much as like the rest of our sales team like anymore. So it's really fun now that they know more than I do about the workspaces. I'm asking them like, what's good for this, or do you have recommendations about this? So it's really nice that it's like for us, we're able to like upskill our whole team to like the level where they actually like know everything about them.
And I think places are made by people, aren't they? So as soon as you place the people into those workspaces, that's when they'll really kind of come to life. And you must get quite a lot of satisfaction from seeing that and hearing the good results that people are getting from the work that you've done.
Yeah, we used to have a North Star metric, which we don't use anymore, but we used to. It was a little bit more about Tally Flex, but we did incorporate into full-time offices, which was like bums on seats. And then like every day it was like, how many bums on seats have we provided? If you see what I mean. It's like we'd have like a monthly thing for like how many people are actually sitting in an office because we placed them there today. And I actually really like that because you just like imagine all these people sitting on their offices.
Particularly if it's optional.
Yeah.
You know, if it's an optional come into the office, I think that's a real marker of success for someone to get up in the morning and go, oh, I know I don't really like the Central Line, but I'm going to go in anyway because I love the place that's going to be there waiting for me when I get in, and I love the people and the atmosphere, and I can go to the gym at lunchtime. And so I think if you are the preferred option as an employer, if your workforce would rather come in than stay at home, that really says something about the space that you've created for them and the environment.
There's a funny stat. One of our partners, so like office partners who provide the office space, they did a report, I think it was about a year ago, which said something like 37% of employees want their office to be Instagrammable. That's like a huge thing because it's like office content
big
is
number.
Huge. Yeah, exactly. I'm sure it's risen now, and I'm sure it's like TikTokable rather than Instagrammable. But it's like interesting what people like actually want out of their spaces.
So I'd ask everyone that's listening, like, think about it. Is your workspace Instagrammable? And if not, maybe you should speak to Jules and get one that is. So before we finish, I'm interested to know, because you are fast moving and you obviously are very much keeping up with your customer and requirements, etc. So what's next for the business and for you?
I think with Tally, we've kind of like got out of the proper startup hustler stage, like hopefully, though I love that stage. So for us, really, we're like a little bit maturing, and for us, like really, it's just growth at the moment. For us, like hence we're hiring like a growth person. Like top line revenue is like the big one for us at the moment because we kind of like need to get to that more sensible stage with like processes, like more managerial, etc. So it's less like the knowledge is in those individuals, and like we're able to dissipate that to the whole team. So yeah, for us is really like growth at the moment. I think we're lucky that the office market is like rising. It's like especially flexible office space, which is kind of like the turnkey solutions, is rising 20% a year. And London is the fastest moving market, and it's like much ahead of other markets. And so for us, inevitably, I'm sure that we already do some stuff out of the UK, but inevitably as other markets like rise, we will obviously go into them. But yeah, for us, it's like top line revenue for us at the moment.
Going I love that. And what about for you personally? So obviously you've got a little one now. Is there any kind of personal plans for you? Are you going to stay full time in the business?
Yeah, definitely full time. Well, I'll be back to full time because I'm doing 4 days a week. Back to full time in the business in January, which will be nice. But yeah, as a founder, you're never really part time or full time, etc. You know, like as soon as he goes to bed, I like get my laptop out and I'm doing a bit of work, etc. Which I'm not saying you need to do, but so it's something I enjoy doing.
I think you should.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a great opportunity.
Yeah. So yeah, for us, I think we're just still finding like the balance of like two full-time jobs and like a little baby, but he's very well behaved, so I'm lucky.
Oh, good. Yeah, well, I'm absolutely thrilled to see where you take the business and to watch it grow. And before I let you go, you've obviously been on a roller coaster of a journey. There will be people that are embarking on similar journeys, maybe in completely different startups, but it's still that kind of founder's journey. What would you say to them? Would you advise them to avoid any particular pitfalls, or is anything you've done particularly well that you'd like to share?
I think always my number one advice is like just do it. Like less thinking, I would say, and more just like get out into the wild, because I think you can people who are like, I've got a business idea, but I don't want to tell you. And like, oh, I can't say yes, all this stuff. It's like, competition is your friend. Like, just get out there and do it, whatever you're going to do. I think something that we didn't do that I wish we had done is more looking at kind of, I'm going to say like competitors, but other people in our space, and like looking at their, as I say, like their financials, their market presence, their teams, etc., and doing a bit more of like in a few years, if we were to be successful, we would look like this, and is that what we want to look at, if you see what I mean? So I think we could have done, which I think is a regret of ours, like a little bit more scoping out of like, I've tried to look into the future a bit more. We were so just like one step, like foot in front of another for a really long time. So now we're trying to do a bit of like longer visioning.
Yeah. I think predictability is a really key thing to have. It's harder than you think sometimes to get predictability, whether it be your revenue or, you know, where you're going to be in 5 years' time if you take a different path to one of your competitors. But it is one of the things that AI can, I suppose, really help with is understanding, you know, if we make this decision, what's the likelihood of us going left or right? But ultimately, when you're building a business, anything can happen, like you say. So you just got to get in there. You've got to just jump in and then react if things go not as you wanted them to, and take the learns and maybe take a different direction. But failing fast, I think, is a really important skill to have as a founder, not to stay in that pain for too long. Just get out of there and move on, do something else.
I was listening to this podcast earlier with, is it Sean Penn, I think, the actor? And he was saying, like, if you're staying still, you're dead. That's like his quote that he was saying. And I was like,
it's profound.
Yeah, exactly.
It makes me a bit scared.
Yeah, I know. Me too. I was like, oh my God, are we standing still? But I feel like that should probably be like written somewhere, shouldn't it? Like, you should always be just like, even if you're making 1% gains, like as long as you're like slowly moving forward.
Totally.
At least you're not dying.
An absolutely fantastic quote to leave us on there. So just remember that, everybody, don't sleep tonight, whatever you do. Jules, it's been so fantastic talking to you. I don't normally stick on the present and what you're building now for so long, because it's very much founder stories. You've got a great founder story, but I think the business is fantastic as well. So I couldn't help indulge myself a little bit more in Tally and what you guys are doing. For those that are listening that are interested in bringing their team together or anything workspace related, I assume people can just reach out to you on LinkedIn or, yeah.
Of course. Yeah, definitely. Like tallyworkspace.com or, yeah, on LinkedIn, always Jules Robertson.
I'm sure that they would take that opportunity, and I certainly will be, for sure. So thank you so much for talking to us. Thanks, Jules.